Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Lucard, and I am an HMIS system administrator for Montgomery County. In today's training, we're going to do an overview of the entry-exit tab, primarily entering a client into HMIS or Service Point. We're going to get right into it because it's going to be a long training. What we're going to do is we're going to look up a test client. As always, we go to Client Point. We look up the client's name. We're only going to do the first few letters and see if we can find Colt Cabana. There he is. There's only one in the system, but we always check to make sure the last four digits of the social and the date of birth, if we have one, match up. If so, we click on the name. We don't have to worry about backdating. And we're going to go into the entry exit tab. Now, I've created three different versions. I've done an HSP rapid rehousing program. I've done a path entry and a diversion entry for him. The reason is because the entry exit screen looks a little different for each of these three programs. So I want to make sure you get a chance to see how different the entry exit screen can be depending on your program. For example, rapid rehousing is going to look very similar, if not exactly the same as permanent supportive, as an SRO program, as a low barrier / emergency shelter, as a bridge program, whereas outreach and diversion are going to have their own unique information. Basically, the rapid rehousing / permanent housing / emergency version is a lot longer and has some questions that are unique to them. The diversion and the outreach are a little bit shorter and have most of the same questions, just not as many. So we're going to take a look at all of them today. But first, we're going to show you how to create an entry exit. There's two ways. We go either to the entry exit tab here on the summary screen, and we click add entry exit. Or we click up here on entry exit, and we can add entry exit here. We would click add entry exit, and then we would fill out this pop out. The provider is going to be what your program is. As you can see, I have a list of 311 programs. You're not going to have that, but you're going to type in whatever type of program that you have. So if I did Dorothy Day, let's use Dorothy Day Men's since Colt's a male. Type, we're going to choose what type of program you have. Basic, HUD, RHY, sorry. VA standard, transitional living program, things like that. Almost all of our programs in Montgomery County are HUD programs. If you're PATH, you're going to choose PATH, but for the most part, you're going to choose HUD. And then your start date is the date that they come into your program. Now, there are 3 dates, and we do a really specific training on this because these 3 dates are important. There's the referral date, which is the date they are referred to your program. The project start date is the date they agree to move into your program. Is the day they say, yes, I want to join Dorothy Day for this case. And then housing move-in date is the date they actually physically move in or lease up, depending on if you're a scattered site program or you actually physically house your clients. So those are 3 important dates to remember. We'll be talking about the housing move-in date specifically in a further training. But for right now, in this training, we're just talking about project start date, which is the date that they agree to join your program. We set the date and time. We would hit save and continue, and it would create an entry for Dorothy Day with all the information we have to fill out. We're going to go in and we're going to do the rapid rehousing one though, and then we're going to go through all 3 of these separately. We click on the pencil. As you can see, we've chosen HUD, rapid rehousing, and the date Colt agreed to join rapid rehousing singles HSP for Catholic Charities is May 1st, 2020. We hit save and continue, and this takes us to the entry date screen. First thing you want to do is make sure that you are in the entry. As we can see here, Montgomery County HUD, COC, and ESG entry all of their projects. If this is PATH, it would be PATH entry, so on and so forth. You want to make sure that you have the entry bubble here. In the training after this one, we're going to cover what all these bubbles are, which are your assessments. We're going to cover how to do assessments in the next training. But for this, you just want to make sure that you're in the entry. If you aren't, for whatever reason, contact your HMIS team, which includes myself, and we'll get to the bottom of it. But it should start off with something that says entry right here. We can also see the entry date, May 1st, 2020. This creates a snapshot, a Polaroid, if you will, of the client's life at this exact date and time. The entry screen is saying everything on this screen is 100% true as of May 1st, 2020. This is where you're going to be doing all of your data entry. This is where you need to be answering all of these questions. Some of these questions appear on other screens like the summary, client profile, or assessments tab. Do not fill them out there. You must fill them out under the entry exit. They're just there to view on the other screens. Please do not change information unless you are doing it under the entry exit and you are doing it by interims. We are doing interims in another training that follows this one, and interims are where you make any changes to the client after their entry date information. Again, the entry date is going to be a snapshot. This is a picture that does not change of the client at the day and time they said, yes, I want to be in your program. And that in this case is May 1st, 2020. So let's take a look at all these questions that you must answer. As you can see, this tab is quite long, but you have to answer all of these questions. This is not optional. These questions are mandatory. For every question that you do not answer, you will be dinged on your APR and your NOFA ranking. You don't want that. You want to answer every question and you need to make sure they are answered correctly. That's why we're doing this training. So let's go through all the different questions and see what we've got. Relationship to head of household. This is literally, how are they related to the head of the household? Since Colt is in a singles program, he is automatically going to be self. He is the head of a household of one. His household is one person and it is him. If it is a family program, then Colt would be the head if he is the head of the household, and everyone else would fill in what is their relationship to Colt. Are they Colt Cabana's child? Are they Colt Cabana's spouse and or partner? Are they some other relation? Are they a member of the Dark Order? It's how are they related to Colt Cabana? We want to make sure that we get that filled in correctly. All right. Date of birth, pretty simple. What was the date of birth of the client? And again, all of these clients, or all of these questions, sorry, are mandatory. You must get answers for them. These are not optional. You need to fill these in, and this includes the kids. Oftentimes we will see that children are missed. They just do the one parent and they leave the rest of the family blank. You can't do that. You have to fill in the entire family. Date of birth. We have a couple different options here. Full, approximate, doesn't know, refused, not collected. We never want to use client doesn't know or client refused. These should only be used in extremely rare circumstances unless you are an outreach program. Outreach, diversion, path, there's going to be times where they don't want to talk to you. So you can do doesn't know and refuse. However, if you are a rapid rehousing program, if you are a permanent supportive program, if you're a low barrier program, you need to get these answers. Client doesn't know and client refused are only if the client literally does not want to talk or engage with you. Data not collected absolutely should not be used as a red flag in the system. It literally means our agency did not care enough to ask this question. So if you get audited or you get checked out by your funder and they see data not collected, they're going to take you to task. Do not ever use data not collected. Bad, 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 bad. We've got Colt's birthday, January 1st, 1950. We're going to say he's kind of elderly. That's okay. Primary race. What race is he? We've got a bunch of different options here. Again, we don't want to use these last three. We're going to say white. Secondary race, we only fill out if they identify as multiracial. So if Colt is only referring to himself as Caucasian or white, you don't have to fill this question out. Ethnicity. What is their ethnicity? Hispanic, non-Hispanic, doesn't know, refused, data not collected. I've already said we don't want to use these three. Actually, data not collected. No, so non-Hispanic and Hispanic, let's say non-Hispanic. And then gender. We have a bunch of different options here. We're going to say male. Client contact information. We can fill this out as many times as we want. Maybe we don't have any client contact information, so we skip it. Maybe we have 3 or 4 because we've got his information, his rental property manager, his parent, his child. That's 4 different contact information. But we're only going to do 2 here as an example. We're going to click add, and then we're going to fill out this information. We have this little chart we have to fill out. Contact. We're going to say this is all Colt's information, right? Other, self, contact relation, self, or we can change this to primary. Doesn't matter. Let's do primary just to make it easier on you guys. Contact name, Colt Cabana, address. Now we just fill out this chart easily, easy. Phone number? Do you have a second phone number? No. Can a voicemail be left for you at this number? We'll say yes. Can text message be left? Yes. And then the start date is the date or project start date or whatever day you gather this information. This should be the project start date. Everything on here on the entry should be the project start date because the client should have an intake sheet and we should have all their intake information. Then we can hit save, which will bring us out of here, or we can do save and add another. We're gonna do save and add another just for the purposes of training. And then we're gonna add another person. Contact type. We'll do other. We'll do good friend. Let's see, friend and associate. Let's do John Silver. Address. Oops. Shouldn't be letters in a phone number. Let's say he doesn't have John's email address, he just has his phone number. That's fine. We hit save. And now if we scroll back up, we can see we have the contact information. We have Colt's information and we have John Silver, his friend's information. Now, does the client have a disabling condition? We're going to say yes. And then we want to make sure that we fill out the disabilities. Anytime you see a red triangle like this, it means that this is a HUD verification question and that the information has not been filled out correctly. So you need to stop whatever you are doing and fill that out. We have a whole separate HUD verification training because it is that important. So we're just going to breeze through this here. I just want to make sure you understand. Do not click the add button. If you click the add button, you will have to do add for each possible disability. Instead, what you want to do is click where it says HUD verification, and you get this little matrix that you can fill out. And you would just choose no, and then you're going to choose yes for whatever issue he has. We're going to say mental health, and we fill out this chart. Disability type and determination are pre-populated because of the chart. We're going to say that he has, yes, long, continued and indefinite duration, and it's going to be long term. Let's say that he has severe manic depression. We'll just say that. Let's save. Hit save and exit. And we can see that instead of hitting the add button 8 or so times, all the questions are filled out. We can see there it says severe mental or manic depression. And we can see that the anger red triangle has become a happy green check mark. So everything is filled out correctly. Again, if you had to do add, you would have to fill out this chart 8 or 9 times, sometimes more depending on the HUD verification question. But if we just click here, we fill out the chart. It takes maybe a minute instead of quite some time to fill out each of those ones one by one manually. Let's move on. Client location, only one option, MD 601. Prior living situation. Where was your client living before he came into your program? Right? We've got all these different options here. Let's say staying in a friend's room or apartment. And then the length of stay, how long were they staying with their friend? They stayed with their friend. We've got all these different choices. We'll say you stayed with them for about a month. And then this pre-populates. Did you stay less than 7 nights? Which is odd because of course we're saying he did. But there is a weird reason for that and we're about to show you. We have what's called conditional formatting here. And this is going to determine if the client is chronically homeless or not. For prior living situation, if you choose any of the homeless options, safe haven, emergency shelter, or place not meant for habitation, some special questions are going to pop up. So let's look at those now. Emergency shelter. All of a sudden, we get these 3 new questions. You can see approximate date homelessness started. How long have they been homeless for the past 3 years? How many months were they homeless? And if we choose something else like hotel, they disappear. Those 3 questions only appear if they were homeless under one of these 3 homeless situation categories, right? So let's fill that out. Let's say that he's been literally homeless for about a week or more. Approximate date homelessness started, we'll say 04/15/2020, because remember he came in on May 1st, 2020. How many times has he been homeless in the past 3 years? We have all these different options. 1 time. Total number of months he's been homeless. Once. This is his first month of being homeless. He's pretty new at it. And as you can see, those are the questions. And if we change place not meant for habitation to something else, like residential project with halfway house, the questions disappear. If we choose a homelessness choice, there they are. So these 3 questions need to be answered if you choose place not meant for habitation, emergency shelter, or safe haven for their prior living situation. Let's move on. Income from any source. We're going to say yes. And again, we have a HUD verification question. So we click over here. We don't choose add. We click HUD verification. So we don't manually have to pick each of these 15 questions and do them one by one by one by one by one by one by one. We're going to do no. And we're going to say he has some earned income. We'll say he makes $1,000 a month. Earned income is a job. And we do start date. We don't fill out the end date. This is the amount of money he came in. He came into our program, Rapid Rehousing, making $1,000 a month. We hit save. Chart's all filled out. We hit save and exit. And there we go. There's our monthly income. Now, monthly income and income from any source have been answered. Yes. And yes, because they both match. We don't want this to be no up here and have $1,000 under earned income, because we will get a logic error. The system will tell us that there's an error when we try to run any reports, because we have no here and yes here. We want to make sure that we don't have any logical fallacies and that everything matches up. Same with total monthly income. If we're saying he comes in with $1,000, his total monthly income here should be $1,000. So on and so forth. Non-cash benefits, we're going to say no this time. We're not going to fill out anything. No. Save and exit. As you can see, all 5 of these are correctly answered. No, 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 no. And if we had said yes here, one of these should be yes. Covered by health insurance, we're going to say yes. Again, HUD verification, click on that. We're going to choose no for everything except Medicaid. And we hit save and exit. Our next question, Medicaid. We said yes already, so let's say yes here as well. What is their Medicaid number? If we said yes to the client getting Medicaid, which we did do up here, as you can see, covered, yes, Medicaid, we need to fill out their Medicaid number. I keep hitting letters. Letters are not numbers. And then, is the client part of the ACES program? This is most likely going to come up as a yes if you are a HIP client. Other programs, it's going to be no, and even with HIP, it's going to sometimes be no. Some clients are ACES program clients. So in this case, because he's Rapid Rehousing, we're going to say no. But if this is a HIP program, the answer might be yes. If you are in a HIP program, ACES will be explained. Domestic victim or survivor, we're going to say no. If we had said yes, we would have to answer yes for domestic violence, yes for domestic violence, because those are if yes questions. If we say no, we don't have to answer these. If we say yes, we do have to answer. And we're nearly done. Current living situation, we fill this out. We click add. Start date, end date, information date. Current living situation, where are they staying? They're about to be in a Rapid Rehousing program. So we could do rental by client with other ongoing subsidy. Living situation, who verified it? This is Catholic Charities Rapid Rehousing, HSP, so let's do that. Is the client going to leave their living situation in 14 days? Nope, they just moved in. But if they were going to leave, we would fill out all these questions. Has a subsequent residence been identified? Can they obtain permanent housing? Have they had a lease or ownership interest in permanent housing in the last 60 days? Have they moved 2 or more times in the last 60 days? And where are they located? All done. Date of engagement, we would put that in once we engage with the client. And that engagement would be for these here, coordinated entry assessment, coordinated entry event. If you are not part of the coordinated entry program, you don't need to fill these out. These are for if you are doing coordinated entry pieces, right? And you would just fill out each of these. Because the client is in rapid rehousing in this case, since we've got him housed, he should already probably have been in the coordinated entry system. And same with coordinated entry event. When we cover coordinated entry as its own training topic, we'll cover these. But for right now, we're going to skip them because we don't have to do them unless we are doing coordinated entry related data entry. But if you are doing coordinated entry, they're going to be here under your entry exit screen. Housing move-in date. We don't actually fill this out here on the entry. We're going to cover this in its own training. Housing move-in date is covered in its own training. You're going to do an interim and you're going to put in the housing move-in date there. So you do not put this in, even if they move into your program on the same day they agree. So if the housing move-in date and the project start date are the same, you're still going to make an interim for the housing move-in date. And that's mainly to keep you in the practice of doing interim every time there's a change to the client. So we don't do the housing move-in date here. We are going to cover housing move-in date in a further training. In fact, 2 trainings, one for the housing move-in date and one when we talk about interims. Last 2 questions. Tuberculosis checklist. We click add. When were they screened? We'll say 04/01/2020. They have a cough? No. Are they coughing up blood? No. Do they have fever or chills? No. We'll say they have night sweat. And he's lost some weight. Has he ever been told he has tuberculosis? No. Has he ever been treated for tuberculosis? Start date must match screening date. So this must be 04/01/2020. End date we can leave blank or we can fill it in. So let's say that his checklist is done the same day, which is fine. And then anyone with a cough lasting more than 3 weeks and answered yes to any of the other questions should be referred to the tuberculosis clinic at Dennis Avenue. So do they have night sweats? Yes. Unexpected weight loss of 10 pounds or more? Yes. So he's answered yes to 2 of the remaining questions. But because he said no to the cough, he doesn't have to go to the clinic. We hit save, and there's our information. Tuberculosis testing, same thing. We don't want to keep them open. So there we go. We can see that he's had his tuberculosis test and a checklist before joining the program. And that's all there is to the entry screen here if you're rapid rehousing, permanent supportive, emergency shelter. You would just hit save and exit and you'd be done. That's all you do to enter a client into the system. In further trainings, we're going to look at how you update a client if their information changes once they've entered the program. And this is very important that you do this because we oftentimes see programs not updating their client, which is a huge no-no. We want to make sure that you have the highest ranking and the best APR score that you can have. And in order to do that, you need to update your client. Also in further trainings, we will cover how to exit a client from HMIS. But before we go, I want to show you the path and diversion so that you can see how slightly different theirs look. Let's start with path outreach because it's right here. Click on the pencil. We can see 5/1/2020. Again, what are we doing? Remember, we want to make sure that the screen pops up with an entry. And here we can see that it's the path entry. And it's the same exact date and time as his HSP entry. That won't happen really in real life, but we're doing it here just for the practice. And let's see, all these questions are already answered because we did them under the HSP rapid rehousing entry. So it's going to pre-populate. And all we can see most of these are the same questions: relationship to head of household, date of birth, ethnicity. So path has a few less questions. There's our disabling, health insurance, and they're in a slightly different order. So as you can see, monthly income and benefit and non-cash benefits are down here, where when they were up towards the top with the previous rapid rehousing entry. But as you can see, it's not too different. They're just in a slightly different order. And we have a few other questions like this. His last known address was in Rockville. We'll say yes. So clearly Gaithersburg is not. So we have these 2 questions here for path. Domestic violence. And then date of engagement date of path determination, client became enrolled in path, connection with SOAR, is the client pregnant? These are all path-related questions. These are path-specific questions here that only appear under path, whereas you saw we had some questions that only appeared for rapid rehousing. So they're slightly different. And now let's look at diversion. Again, 5-1, we can see we chose HUD for diversion. And here's our diversion assessment. We're in the diversion assessment. This is the only one that doesn't say entry right at the top in bold, which is one of the reasons I wanted to show it to you, because everyone else is going to have that. I've been saying, hey, you got to have that entry. You got to have that entry. Diversion's the exception to the rule. And we can see here's the things. Here's where those coordinated entry things we talked about. Diversion is definitely going to do these, as they are going to do the current living situation. So you're going to see these done here far more often than you would in, say, a permanent supportive program. And then we can see the specific diversion question. Do you consider yourself homeless? Yes. What type of situation you've been sleeping in most often? We've got these options. What jurisdiction do you sleep in most often? All these different counties, Virginia, Washington, D.C. will say that they are staying in Montgomery County for pretty good reason. All right. Client contact information, same as on the rapid rehousing screen. And you can see we have everything else are questions that we've already covered in the rapid rehousing version. We do have two other questions that the version has that's unique to them: employment history, where we would fill this out, and housing history. Where are they currently staying? Do they have any back rent? Are they the leaseholder? Things like that. We hit save after we answer all those, and we would be done. And so as you can see, it's about 90% the same depending on what type of program you have, but each one has a few little unique questions just for that program type. So as we've seen, SSO has its own thing, PATH has a few unique questions, and then the rapid rehousing / permanent supportive / emergency shelter have a few questions that are unique to them. But the process is still the same. All those questions we need to get answered. And entry exit works the same way, and that is a snapshot of when the client agrees to join your program. And that's all there is to the entry screen. Again, join me for the follow-up supplemental trainings to this one, where we're going to talk about assessment. We're going to talk about interims. We're going to talk about HUD verification, and we're going to talk about how to exit your client from the program. Entry exit is where you're going to spend the vast majority of your time. This is where you want to do all your data entry. You don't want to do data entry under, say, client profile of the summary. And we go into that under backdating as to why. So please make sure that you join me for the next few trainings under the entry exit. This is the first of many, because I want to make sure that you understand how important the entry exit tab is and all the many functions that occur under this tab that you as a case manager are responsible for. Thank you for your time, guys, and I look forward to you joining me in the next training. Have a great day.